been the happiest place in the whole entire world. And the coolest thing today is I have one of the greatest podcasters in the world. This man has locked into the hospitality industry and has Modern Hotelier. He's one of the co-hosts of that podcast. And when I sat down with him, it was almost like, I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. And growing up, I was never around Oilers fans. I was never around Titans fans. And when you get around your people, it just blows your mind. And when you get a chance to be around a master at their craft, one of the best to ever do it in the industry, it was incredible. We were supposed to have this young man on in July, and it was my daughter had a play that we were working with, and I wasn't able to take care of it, but it was incredible because I noticed his heart right off the bat. And Steve Carran, who you're gonna meet here in a second, this guy didn't have any challenge right off the bat. He just connected, and that's the reason why he's as successful as what he is. He helps people to understand what the newest technologies, where the trends are happening in the hospitality industry, and it's not just about the hotels, but it's about the people and the people using the technology. So it's my honor and my pleasure, and to be able to bring you not only one of the baddest podcasters in the world with Modern Hotelier, but also one of my newest friends that I'm going to force him to be my friend for the rest of his life. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
So why should a hotel or hospitality company go and spend $50,000 on going to a conference and come back and have nothing to show for it except maybe calling their leads? Help me out with this, Steve.
You're talking my language, man. I don't know. That's crazy. I can't imagine spending $50,000 on a show and just calling it quits after that and just following up on your leads. No, I agree. It's been we've had the pleasure of working with some great companies at trade shows, and one of the big reasons they want to talk to us at trade shows is keep that momentum going. Have that content after the show that they can put on LinkedIn, their websites, all their socials, and keep that traction going.
What about the people that question, right? So I'm sure that your father-in-law questioned this right off the bat when you went into podcasting, because, it's still the Wild West. And I get this question all the time. It's like, people are like, oh my gosh, you have a podcast. And then the next question, I don't know if you get this all the time, but the next question is, okay. And they get kind of like silent, or they get embarrassed, and they're like, okay, so how does it work? And I'm like, well, I push the button and I start recording, and I get to talk to amazing people all over the world because I know what they're asking. How did you deal with this in your family? And because it's incredible what you're doing. You're giving people a voice. You're helping them with their content, things like that. But how was that conversation with the family?
Well, that conversation is still going on. I'll be honest with you. I started this in April, and I went full time with this in April. And it was funny, a month or during that time when I was really deciding if I want to go full time. And my wife has been my biggest cheerleader. She's been incredible. She's like, you should do this. Like, if it doesn't work, you can always go back and get a normal job, right? But it was funny. I was talking to my mother-in-law about it, and she's like, sounds cool, but like, how do you make money doing this? And then explain sponsorships and stuff like that. And she's like, okay. But over the past few months, I think she came out to Colorado about a month ago and has seen how it's been going and feels a little bit more at ease about it now. But yeah, I had a conversation with my mom last week, and she's like, I still don't understand how you make money or exactly what you do, but I trust you. So it's been fun. I'm learning too, right? It's my first time doing podcasting full time, so always learning new tricks and angles.
Well, let's talk about the value, because the value add is ridiculous. Like, to be able to see,
Right.
and if you guys haven't watched the Modern Hotelier, a lot of you catch it on LinkedIn, you catch it on the other platforms also, but you're really locked into this hospitality aspect, and you're helping people to understand like the technology, the trends that are happening. So help us to understand what is coming, that you're hearing, because you're hearing from like on the forefront. What are some of the things that are coming that we can expect in hospitality?
It's an exciting time. It's a really exciting time in hospitality. Brands, they're getting more involved in the independent space. They're buying up. We saw a brand buy up Graduate Hotels recently. So people are seeing that the independent space is all about experiences, and hospitality and travel currently is all about experiences. If you're going to a hotel, you're not just going to a hotel, and you're not going to hang out in the hotel the whole time, right? You're going to want to do something in the hotel or around the city, do a hyper local experience, live how the locals around the town live. Find maybe that restaurant that's not a chain, but maybe that secret dive bar or speakeasy in the city that the locals might know about. So it's all about experiences. You probably saw with Taylor Swift's tour, how that stimulated economies with the city she was going to. So music is this huge experiential travel where people are now taking maybe 1 or 2 vacations a year, less than they usually did, but they're spending more money and they're going to a city for an event like a Taylor Swift concert, and that's kind of what they're there for. And they're not too concerned about how much money they're spending, since this is their big trip of the year. But yeah, they want experiences while they're there, and also way more personalization. People are sick of getting to, the hotel and not being greeted. They want you to know who they are and why they're there.
Well, let's go back to the conference part, because this was something that you said, like, what, before we started recording, where you were talking about the conferences, and there's so many businesses that go to conferences, and
Yep.
they hope to meet someone, they come back, but you have been able to create a situation where they have evergreen, where a person can go all the time and go back and hear that voice and hear that kind of commercial itself. What are you finding that most of the companies wish that their customer knew about that would make their job easier?
Yeah, I think it's how they're helping hoteliers. And one of the things is that a lot of people that we're talking with, either they're startups or they've been in business for a long time, but they have, through COVID, evolved or changed as a company, whether that's offering different services or offering more services. So really getting out that word about who they are, and getting in front of the right people at a trade show. You're gonna get in front of people, but you're not gonna get in front of everybody that gets there. Having this content after the trade show helps you expand your reach. You get to post it on your website, you get to post it on your socials, and that way you get in front of a much larger audience, than just those other that are going to stop by your booth at the trade show.
What have you learned about the hospitality industry that you kind of freaked out more than I think people think of the hospitality industry and they think, okay, it's a hotel, right?
Yeah.
I book my room. My room costs this much. I go down. I have some food in the. What are some of the things that for you it kind of started to blow your mind a little bit? The deeper and deeper you got into this, because you're getting a look behind the curtain.
Honestly, I think one of the big eye-opening moments for me was COVID. Our industry pretty much shut down, and it's what where people weren't going to stay in hotels, right? But it showed how resilient our industry was. And it's not only how resilient we are, but also how creative we get when we're forced with challenges that come up. We're not just going to throw in the towel and say, oh well, we can't have anybody in our hotel, it's COVID, what are we going to do? No, we worked around it. We adjusted our technology, we adjusted our guest experience, all around COVID. So for me, it has been, not only is it one of the most fun industries you can work in, the people in this industry are absolutely incredible, but it's the resilience that I really saw from people working in hotels, the tech companies, pretty much the stakeholders in the hospitality industry that make it run. So that I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for with that question, but that was like my favorite
Yeah.
thing that I have really learned from working in this industry for almost a decade.
No, I'm just looking for you to talk to me today, Steve. That's what I'm saying, man. So, but help me to like, why did you start in the hospitality industry? Why did you choose that route? For me, it's fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
I believe that if every business would study the hospitality industry, if they would just study that and they can apply their principles, no matter what it is that you're doing, no matter what business it is that you're doing, there's something in the hospitality industry that can elevate your business. But why did you choose it?
Yeah, and I agree. I think hospitality is all about people. And if other industries treated their customers, employees, it's all about the people, I think we'd be better off as a society. But why did I choose hospitality? Man, what a great question. I moved to Washington, D.C., and was working at an advisory company. It was a Fortune 500 company, huge company. And it wasn't for me. I love startups. I like making a difference on a daily basis. So I ended up getting into advertising the hospitality space and was selling to different vendors and talking to hotels in the industry. And it got me excited about the industry. But on the other hand, I've always loved technology. Um, I was that guy in college that was watching The Social Network like once a week back in college, just because I love the startup story, and how that came to be. So I was interested more in the technology side. So I was looking for technology companies around the Washington, D.C. area in the hospitality industry, and I came across Stay in Touch. They're based in Bethesda, Maryland, a PMS company. And they were doing things that nobody else in the industry was doing at that time. This was pre-COVID. They were doing mobile check-in and really creating more upsells, creating a better guest experience. And that really intrigued me and got me really excited about what was happening. So once I went to Stay in Touch, it was, man, I was like, give me as much information as possible, not only about hospitality, but about the technology and the hotels as well. And then from there, I worked with independent hotels, and that's how independent hotels became my big passion. And then from there, it's, just been working with a few different startups and starting the podcast. But
So,
it's been an awesome industry to work in.
so Steve, who wouldn't want to work, and like, what company is not a good fit for the Modern Hotelier podcast? Like, there's sometimes where I have people reach out all the time, which I want to thank every single person that reaches out, but not everybody that reaches out that wants to be on the podcast is the person that should be on the podcast.
Sure.
Is there a company that shouldn't be in the hospitality industry? If they're in the hospitality industry, who's the company that shouldn't be on the show?
I don't think we have anybody, to be honest with you. We work with everybody in hospitality. We have hoteliers on that work with either individual hotels, property management companies, groups, anything like that. But then we also have the technology companies that come on as well, the vendors that want to get in front of hoteliers. My co-host, he was a former GM, and now he's on the technology side as well. So, if whether you're a vendor or technology person, David and I come from that side. We understand where you're coming from, who you're trying to get in front of, and things like that. But if you're a hotelier, that's who we want to talk to. So we don't discriminate on our podcast. If you're in hospitality and you want to come on a podcast, feel free to hop on.
But also, too, I think that it's just people don't understand the power of it. I mean, the power of the messaging, the power of being able to have, your message get out, and not only just get out once, because it used to be, hey, if I want to put that voice out, I buy a commercial, like a commercial, and that commercial runs 1, 2, maybe 3 times, and then I'm done. And I sure hope all the people that I wanted to watch do it. But podcasting is completely different, where it's evergreen. Can you expand on that a little?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the great thing about podcasts. I come from the sales side, right? I can have a 30-minute conversation and with someone, and I probably can get 5 to 6 minimum sound clips of you. And during these conversations, we always ask, like, what makes XYZ company unique compared to other people in the industry? What makes you stand out? We always want to present you as a thought leader when you come on our podcast, and why people should work with you, what makes you unique. That's so powerful, especially as a salesperson. I think, like, when I'm talking to a prospect and they're like, hey, like, I'm talking to 3 other companies, why would I work with you? Be like, hey, great question. Here's our CEO. He was just on a podcast. He talks about what differentiates us from other people in the industry. Just having a video, people want to have videos. They want to watch things. It's much more entertaining than an email that's 8 paragraphs of why you're different from your competitor, right? So I think the content, and having that content just to reuse and share in not only your sales pitches, but on your website, your social media as well, it just creates so much more engagement than your standard written post or written email as well.
So when you go through, you become aware of things a lot of times before the things are happening, or basically on the cutting edge. So for anyone listening, if you want to know what's going to happen in hospitality, what is happening and what has happened, there's one place, and this is Modern Hotelier podcast. So help me with this, though, because when technology comes around, especially in a people business, sometimes people get afraid that the technology is then going to take the place of the personal touch. What have you learned through interviewing some of the people that you're working with, how they're going to be able to connect the two? I think one of the greatest connectors of these two is Amaze Insights with Nick Horgan. So his company, although they're technology based and they're the best in the business, he still keeps an incredible personal touch that we were talking about with LinkedIn. What have you learned about it?
Yeah, I mean, so I view technology fits the best with hotels when it increases the experience, right?
Okay.
I am all about giving guests, my view is, I think we should give guests the option of how they want to interact with your hotel. So Kelly, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. When you're traveling, okay, you're going to the airport, what are you using for your boarding pass?
I've started to use my phone. I've just started.
You used to do the ticket still?
I did for a little bit, and then I was like, I'm old and get off my lawn. So then I had to do but I do my phone now.
You do your phone. Okay. So then you land, right?
Uh-huh.
How are you getting to your next location? I'm assuming you have a personal driver, say he's not available in that location. But what do you use? How are you getting to your hotel?
Uber.
There you go. Okay, so you're using your phone for your boarding pass, then you're using your phone for your transportation, and then when you get to the hotel, then what happens if they don't have an app or anything? You just have to stand in line, and it's like,
whoa.
If you think about that, you're using technology through every aspect of your travel, and then when you get to the hotels, some hotels, they don't have technology. And I mean, when I'm traveling for business, what I want to do, I want to check in, probably take a shower, get ready, like put on some fresh clothes and go grab a bite to eat usually.
Yeah.
And I can do that quicker through a mobile check-in. I can see if there's early check-in available. That's what I'm saying. So the technology has to make the guest experience better, right? So that's one thing I love talking to companies, how their technology interacts with the guest experience. So it gives a guest an option of how they want to engage with you, how they want to purchase your upsells, how they want to experience your hotel. So I think that's the huge thing of how the best ways to incorporate technology into the hotel is how you're increasing the guest experience. I think we'll see more of a variety of hotels. I think we are going to start seeing hotels that are fully automated. I've talked to a company that has a hologram person or a hologram as their front desk employee, right? So we're going to see these hotels that are totally automated. You walk in, there might be 4 or 5 people on premise, make sure nothing goes wrong. And if you need help, you can do it. But then on the luxury side, you're not going to want to get rid of, luxury hotels. You still want that high touch. You want to walk in and be, hello, Mr. Kelly, how are we doing today? That's what we want. We don't want to be on an app the whole time. So it's how technology affects hospitality. It's going to change regardless of, what type of hotel it is. But I think we're going to see more of a variety of hotels that are fully automated to more of those ultra luxury high touch hotels.
So with the let's go to the ultra luxury high touch
Yeah.
side. How do they integrate it? Because say for me, gold standard for this is me, right? And so the
Yeah.
gold standard for me is the Four Seasons, and even more specific, it's the Four Seasons in Maui. And I've got an affinity for it. My wife and I were married there. We travel there, 2-3 times a year. Not in the last couple of years, but we had, and it just absolutely everything down to the tea that they would serve only from 11 till 1.
Right.
I mean, seriously, it's this tea, this exact one. It has some lemonade in it, had the thing.
Oof.
I mean, it was amazing. And the Mr. Cardenas, when you show welcome back, like, how do you know? Like, and to see these kind of things, how can a hotel like that integrate integrate like a technology without losing the feel of, hey, Mr. Cardenas, let me spray you with some chilled Avion?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it matters what type of technology you want to implement, right? So, ultra luxury hotel, one of the technologies that's so crucial there is communication technologies, whether that's walkie talkies, texting, things like that. Because you got to think, right? I got to give out one of my favorite luxury hotels is a Stafford in London. If you ever get a chance, go there. There, it's absolutely incredible. But when you walk in, the doorman pulls it, welcome back, Mr. Kelly. We're happy to have you. You walk through the lobby, and they're like, hey, how we doing? Welcome back, Mr. Kelly. Anything we can get you? Everybody knows your name, right? And you're like, how does everybody remember everybody walking through? No, they're radioing the doorman. Mr. Kelly's coming in, and then everybody understands. So, like, that's a huge technology. I also think personalization is huge. I think a lot of people, personalizing the TV is awesome, but with luxury, I think it still is knowing your guests,
Mm.
understanding them, right? Like at the Stafford in London, they did something that was incredible. I walked in, they upgraded my room, and they had a plate, and it had the Modern Hotelier logo in chocolate, and they had a bottle of champagne next to it. And it said, welcome to the Stafford, Mr. and Mrs. Carran. We're happy to have you. Let us know if you want anything. And it was signed by the concierge team. And that was one of the coolest experiences I ever had. And so I think that's a huge thing about luxury is it's all about personalization more. And technology is great, but having that personal touch and showing the guests that you care about them and that you're happy that they chose to spend however much it is at your luxury property to stay with them. So I think that's the huge thing in luxury is that personalization, but you got to keep up with technology and make sure that it's not an ancient experience when you're trying to check in or go through anything else at the hotel.
Let's go back to the woman that we talked about from the very beginning, which was Mama, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's cool because when we're in the hospitality or we're in business or whatever it is, a lot of times we'll find ourselves doing things that our parents told us to do that we didn't want to do at the time, but then we go back to the principles that they taught us, and we a lot of times don't want to give them credit because we don't want to tell them they're right. What were some of the things that you were raised on that helped you along on this journey in the hospitality industry?
Oh my goodness, man. What a great question. I learned my mom is like my favorite human on this earth, and she always taught me to work hard and have a positive attitude. And that's just what I was raised on. When I was 13, I don't know if this was a fully legal thing, but I had 2 jobs. I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I'd go work at a strawberry patch till about noon. Then I'd have a little break, and then I'd go work at McDonald's from like 3 to 8. So I was always putting in long hours growing up, and that was always something that just was instilled in me. But I think, hard work only goes so far. You have to have the right attitude, like you have the positivity. Things go wrong, don't let it drag you down. It's like, okay, this happened in my life. It's going to make me better in some way, shape, or form. Pick yourself up and let's keep going, right? So I think just the hard work and always having a positive attitude and looking at the bright side of things, and I those are 2 of the cornerstone, I think, in my personality that my mother had installed on me from a very young age.
Well, when I was given the introduction of you and I was talking about being so excited to be able to not only be your friend because you're a cool guy. Like we had an experience. I said, hey, come to the Vibe Room. And I said, I got tickets for you. And then you were like, all right, cool. Let me check on tickets. And I was like, cool. Cause he's going to check out on the, like, you know, how much it'll be to fly in, whatever it was. And then my communication was off, and you know, you were like, hey, I think the ticket to get my mom there is going to be a little bit more. And I was like, hey, Steve, we're boys, but we ain't that good of boys. I'm just juggling, man. But that experience for me was so cool. But the reason why I'm saying it is because we have something common in this podcast space, and to be able to talk podcasting, I generally don't get a chance to do it because most people don't understand what the hell it is, right? And so I want to go deeper into that part, like, because there's so many people, so many companies, right, that would benefit. Like every company in the industry, in the hospitality industry, would benefit from being on your podcast. Every one of them. And it would be, I mean, no matter what KPI you had, you would be able to show them, hey, this part, what you wanted is going to be able to come. We just got to focus on that part.
Yeah.
What do you wish that people in your industry knew about podcasting and how much it could do for them?
Man, what a great question. Again, Kelly, you're on a roll. You know, the hospitality industry, it's no secret that they're a little bit slower to adapt to things than maybe most industries. Podcasting is still a pretty new thing in this industry. I don't think a lot of companies have really fully looked into how it can benefit them. I'll give you a quick story though of how it can benefit you. We had a guest on. He was from a tech company and came on our podcast, and about a week later, got a call from him. He goes, hey, Steve, just got off of a sales call. And I go, oh, how'd it go? He goes, it was the best call I've ever had in my life. I called the GM, cold called him, and he said, oh, I heard about your company on the Modern Hotelier. And he's like, oh, that's cool. He's like, yeah, I'd love to set up a meeting. It's like, I'm going to loop in my boss as well. So loops in his boss, who's C-level executive of this hotel group. And he's like, oh, I know you guys. I heard you on the Modern Hotelier. And he called me, goes, it was the easiest sale I've ever had in my life because they both heard about us from your podcast. So just that, showing kind of getting your voice out in an industry that is so crowded on the technology side specifically, getting your voice out there, talking about your story, how you started your company, what your company is trying to solve, because it might be different from one of your competitors, right? But just getting you out there, getting your personality out there, showing that industry who you are and why you're trying to help our industry. And then you not only have that, it's not just a one time it goes out. You can save that, put it on your website. Like I said a few times, put it on your socials and promote it. You can make a 2 to 3 month campaign easily out of a 30-minute conversation on a podcast. So instead of your marketing team trying to, oh, we have to get a film crew, we have to write the podcast, we have to make sure it's good quality too, because if the quality stinks, you just don't want to be promoting that on your socials, right? So like, we're doing all the heavy lifting for you. You basically just have to show up and tell us about your company. So I think that's the huge thing. And, podcasting is a fairly new thing. And I think people are starting to learn and understand the value, but I think that's a huge thing. It saves companies time and also gives them that quality content that they can reuse over and over and over.
What about the fact of what I found was with our company early on, years ago, we were in the professional beauty industry. And so we spent a lot of time educating our people, which obviously in a company, you have to do that. But I found that if I would have understood this median, I could have actually educated my guest to be able to walk in and for my staff to have to just field the questions that the customer was already prepped for. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
A person, when we had salons all over the country. So the biggest challenge was a stylist talking to the guest about the products in which they used. The reason why is because the stylist said, like, I'm not a salesman. I don't want to do all the stuff. And once I got into this median, I realized that all I would have to do is send the message out that during the winter, it's a little drier. You're going to need moisture, and we have the answer. And now the guest walks in already prepped and ready. Do you have the answer for my challenge that I became aware of because of the messaging? And now the team doesn't have to do that stuff. It just fields it. Do you find this this concept it could be used in the hospitality industry also?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We just had a guest on, and they own around 40 to 50 independent hotels.
Okay.
And they're all boutique lifestyle hotels. But I mean, that's what you want to do. Like he was talking about how they talk about their amenities and pitch potential guests about, hey, here's why you should stay here. And I think that's a huge thing. Like every hotel is so different, right? And if you have a phenomenal rooftop pool, make sure people know about that, right? Like that's why people want to come. Or say you have a phenomenal brunch that you have, you shout to the mountaintops about the amenities that you have and educate your potential guests. And that's how you bring in repeat guests too, is if you're promoting what you have on premise and they go and have a great time, they're going to come back too. So getting those guests in the doors through your amenities, and it's not only about your amenities, it's how you treat your guests as well. So I think when you talk about how that maybe show the guest experience or talk about the guest experience, how unique, I mean, that's huge if I'm staying at a hotel.
How big have you seen, or what's the difference between the person who gets heard, because it's a very noisy world now too, right? And so, a lot of people will be like, oh, I've got to do this type of advertising or this type of marketing because everybody's doing that. But you just talked about a second ago about people actually understanding their story, the individual story. How does a person get heard? How do some of these companies stand out? Because literally, like, whether it be in the law profession, in hospitality, whatever it is, in hospitality, you're selling a room that has a door, that has a bed in it. And how have you seen people starting to differentiate and actually get their voice heard?
Man, it is, what a great question. I think one of the big things is selling that experience and doing it where your customer is. Man, I follow a bunch of hotels on Instagram, and there are some hotels that absolutely knock it out of the water. One is the Good Time Hotel in Florida. If you don't follow them on Instagram, they're incredible. But selling that experience and being where your potential guests are. If you want to advertise in a newspaper about your guests, or your experience, probably not where your guests are going to be. But if you're going to be on Instagram, you're going to be, on LinkedIn and socials, be where your guests are, promoting the experience, promote that tea time that you can only have for 2 hours. And it's the best tea you'll ever have in your life, right? So be where your guests are and promote those unique experiences that other potential hotels don't have, right? So that's what I would say. Be where your potential guests are and be an individual. I guess not an individual, but like be personable. Play to your strong points, whether that is, say you have a great hyper local activities, or you partner with some great music venues in town or restaurants. Play to that, but play to what makes you unique in your individuality, not just, hey, we're a hotel and doing what everybody else is doing.
So one of my friends, his name is Sean Finnegan. You should meet him. I'll introduce you guys. He's an incredible human. But he said something to me one time. He said, it's always the start that stops you. And I stopped, and I was like, what do you mean? And he said, just say it slow, and then think about it for a second. So he didn't give me the answer, but this I find happens with so many companies and podcasting because they think right off the bat, okay, well, podcasting, it's newer. I need to go and do it. But I could tell you this, not all companies need to start a podcast. They just need to find someone like you that can put them on, and they don't have to do the work, right? How does that ring true to you?
I mean, I think so, right? If say you're looking, I don't know, for a specific product and you see a podcast from from that company, right? That's going to be a pretty biased opinion about their product, right? Just hypothetically, a PMS company, property management system company, is doing their own podcast talking about PMSs. They're going to promote themselves. It's not unbiased by any way, shape, or form. I think it comes across a little more genuine when you come on a podcast like ours, and we don't share questions in advance. I do the research. I do the research on their background, and we like to make it more personal, how they got to where they are. But then we ask the questions about their technology, and these aren't layup soft. Well, some of them might be layup softball questions, but we want to really know what makes you unique and why hotels should implement that technology, right? So I think using somebody else gives it a little bit different perspective than if your own company hypothetically is has their own podcast. But I know a lot of companies are starting their own podcasts, and it's kind of funny. That's how we got our start. 3 years ago, we started as a company podcast, and now it's turned into a life of its own. But I don't think it's bad for companies to do their own podcast. I think it's a great way to showcase partnerships, integrations, how they're helping the industry at all. I just think going on a third party's podcast is a little different than your own.
You told me before we started that there was nothing off limits.
Nothing off limits, man.
What if based off your experience and all the people? I mean, I was asking you about how often you're recording, and you were like, we're doing 2 times every Friday, but we're trying to get to 1, but we're so booked that we have to get through this. There's so many people on the show, which is awesome, man, and congratulations on that. Tell me the top 5, like when I say top 5, that would get you in even more trouble, but you're around amazing technologies, right?
Yep.
And not every hospitality company is using those technologies that could make their life a lot easier. What are maybe 3, 5 things or companies and technologies that if your hotel company implemented, it would make your job so much easier, just like Steve's job every day?
How many do you want? 5?
Well, I mean, you could go 5 if you want. Yeah.
We'll do. Okay, I'm gonna shout out. There's a few. One company that I really am excited about. It's called Levy.
Okay.
They are utilizing AI to help housekeepers. And why I love this company is most people and companies are focused on AI and taking the human away from it and implementing AI to replace the human. Levy is essentially incorporating AI to help the housekeepers, but not take them away from their jobs. So what it does is a housekeeper will scan their phone to the hotel room. And what they have done is utilized AI, which shows the perfect hotel room. So the shampoo bottles are facing this way, and we have these 3 items on the kitchen or on the bathroom counter. So what the housekeeper does is they finish cleaning the room, organizing it, everything like that. They pick up their phone and scan the room. And the AI tells what's missing or out of place in the room. The checklist is already incorporated into the AI, so it says everything they need to do, and they scan the room, and it will pick up the devices, and then it will automatically check off everything that they were supposed to do. If something's missing or out of place, there'll be a red square around what's supposed to be there or how it's out of place, and then then the housekeeper can go and do that. So it's saving the housekeepers a ton of time, which is great during staffing shortages. And it's also helping them be better at their job. And can you imagine being a housekeeper your first day on the job? You're like, oh man, I hope I get this right. And this AI is like, no, you're good. You're good. You can go to the next one. You don't have to worry about like the person who's checking the rooms to make sure they're okay. It's like, I already know everything's in place. We're good to go. So that's one of my favorite technologies that I've seen. Another one is Zerf. They are working with hotels to help drive direct bookings. small startup, but the guys there are just incredibly smart, have been working with a few decent sized groups, just doing A/B testing on the hotel's websites on how to help drive the best traffic to their booth. So those are two of the younger companies that I've seen out there that are doing some really cool stuff in the industry. I'm excited to see how I think there's some cool robotic companies out there that are doing some cool things. I don't know if we're there yet with the robotics side of things. I think we have about a year or two left before we get that, but I'm excited to see how that comes out.
What
But
are the robotic?
I,
What's the robotic aspect? What parts are you seeing that people are working on? Because it's fascinating to us, because if you're not in the hospitality industry and you're just a consumer, when you go in, imagine like now. My mind's blown with this levy thing, right? Because how many different applications that could be for parents? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
put your room in place as a kid and then just scan that bad boy and send it to me at the end of the day. I don't know if it's going to parents, but I mean, I would like it because my son
You
doesn't
can use
know
it for
where.
like, yeah, it's crazy. I was thinking, it's just, I don't know. I think about this stuff and I was thinking about their company. I'm like, you could literally use this for anything, on cruises for housekeepers, like, anything, even Airbnb maids or
Oh
people
my
that come into an
gosh.
Airbnb. It's like, you can use that for anything. It's a great use case.
It's
So
incredible.
yeah,
What about the robotics part? Go back to the robotics part, because I think that with this, there's people that are like AI. When you say AI, they're taking over all the stuff, but this is awesome. The
yeah,
robotic part, this is where people start to get fearful too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And they start to be like, yo, is that going to be a robotic maid that's coming to my door? What if,
yeah.
So help me with this one.
Robotics. All right. So this is kind of cool. So we are working on the robotic housekeeper. We're working on it. I think the big thing is how do we make a bed yet? So we got to figure out how to have a robot make a bed, but I know we have some robotic companies cleaning out there. I think it's all about how you promote the robotics, right? Dream Hotel Group, they have robots that deliver room service to you. And if you forget a toothbrush or something, they'll deliver it to you, and they promote the heck out of it. They're like, oh yeah, and people love it. They promote it on their socials and things like that. So I think it's how you position the robotics. I think it can definitely help with the time we've been in for the past year, 2 years, with staffing shortages. Like, robotics can definitely help in that. I have seen them. I've been at restaurants where the robot will get lost and things like that, and then it just is running into tables and chairs and stuff like that. So, like, those type of robotics are kind of interesting. That one was funny. It couldn't find its way back to the kitchen. Some staff member always had to push a button and take him back to the kitchen. Otherwise, he just was going around and getting lost. So, I think if you implement it well and it's done correctly, like, I think Dream's done a great job with it. It's a pull for those people that want robotics in the industry, right? And they want to stay in a room where they can get room service delivered by a robot. So I think if you're going to do it, you have to do it well. But also promote it. I don't think we're there for a fully robotic company or hotel yet, although we are getting close. The hologram company that does holograms at the front desk. I mean, that's really cool. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that probably in the next 3 to 5 years, just because it helps so much with staffing. And, instead of waiting in line for a front desk, you can just go to a hologram and get your key and be up to your room.
Nick Horgan, actually, he sent me one of those. He was at the convention. I can't remember the exact name of the company, but
HoloConnects is
which
the
one is
one
it?
that HoloConnects.
HoloConnects, yeah. So I
Yes.
believe
So
it was
they're the
that,
one that I know.
and he sent me a hologram of him, a video of a hologram of him talking to me. And at first, because I couldn't see the frame, so it's just a video. I was like, man, this is so cool. And then he walked out from behind, and I mean, it was unreal. So you talked about, you've mentioned it a couple of times while we've been talking. You've been talking about staffing shortages, right? Which is real. I think it's real in every single industry. Yep. What are some of the biggest challenges that the hotel industry is dealing with in addition to the staff shortages?
Man, what a good question. I think this is something that I guess I didn't realize it before I got into the industry, but hospitality is not a career, it's an industry. You can do anything you want in hospitality. It doesn't have to be only a front desk manager or GM at a hotel. You can be passionate about accounting. You can be an accountant for a hotel. You can be an accountant for a hotel management group. If you're passionate about sales, you can be a salesperson for a hotel or hotel group. Marketing, same thing. So it's looking at how we can bring people to the industry and position the industry not as hospitality as a career, but the career that you want to do, you can do in hospitality. And it's fun. It is way more fun. You get to go hang around cool people. People are always pretty happy to see you because they're traveling, they're on vacation, they're having fun. And then you get to talk to all different hoteliers about different experiences. It's a very fun industry to be in. But I think, positioning the industry as what we can all do inside the industry and not just, oh, you should come work in hospitality. I think some companies are doing some really awesome things to attract a younger workforce. That's one of our big problems. During COVID, we lost a lot of young people in the industry, and they're not coming back. I mean, they had probably overworked, probably lower wages than their friends were making too, right? So what we're seeing is companies that are being more flexible, that are increasing wages, and that are making it a better work experience for their hoteliers. So younger generations, I mean, I like it. I work from home and I love it, right? People want to work from home more, right? So hypothetically, your front desk person can't work at home every day, right? You got to be at the front desk. But your sales and marketing person, your accounting, maybe they work a few days from home. I met with Daniel Del Olmo, the president of Sage Hospitality, and I just love what they're doing. They are having they have an option for a 4-day work week. So increasing flexibility where if that one of their employees has a field trip or they have their car broke down, they need to take it to the shop, they have the flexibility to do that. So I just think increasing, talking about hospitality as an industry, not a career, and showing all the different career options, we need to do a better job of that, but also kind of catering to this younger generation and increasing more flexibility into the workplace as well. So I think we're getting there, and I think we're seeing hotel groups and hoteliers realize this. But it's I think just getting more people into the industry and getting people excited about it too.
In the hospitality industry, where have you seen, this is just my belief part of it, but there's a line between culture and discipline. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's the extremes, old school, I don't care how you feel. We just need to get the work done and we're going to get the results. Then there's the other side of we just need to feel good all the time. Doesn't matter about the results,
Yeah.
just as long as you like coming to work. And then there's this line where the two meet, where you can have discipline and you can have culture. So sometimes the ping pong table and the nap in the middle of the day isn't the best for the company, right? Does that make sense? Right? Because
Yeah,
we went through these extremes. We went from my dad saying we do not need to take the dog to a groomer. You should shave the dog ourselves. And I can make that hamburger that you want to get in the drive-thru. I'll make it in the backyard. Mind you, it won't taste anything like what the hamburger in the drive-thru was. And then we had this culture come in that was you know what? You should do everything that you want. If you don't feel good about it, you shouldn't do it. Where in the hospitality industry have you seen where that line is the marriage of the two, where the culture meets up with the discipline and they're able to move forward?
Yeah, great question. I think that comes from the top of the organization, right? If you're I was talking to Bruce Jordan, and he's a former hospitality guy or former hotelier, but he's your workers are gonna follow your direction. If you're a GM and you're taking those naps, you can bet that your night audit person or your nighttime manager is taking those naps and they're not at the front desk, right? So I think the culture really comes from leadership and kind of how they are. And, I think having that culture where it's all about the guests. right?
Mm.
Creating those memorable experiences. And yeah, hey, if it's noon and no, well, it won't be noon, but say it's like, 4 p.m. and it's a quiet day. Hey, if you want to take a little break, fine. But if we're busy or we're doing something, we're here. It's kind of that work hard, play hard mentality, right? But overall, I think that comes from kind of the leadership of the hotel, how they run the hotel, their priorities, and the culture that they've really put in place.
What are some of the cultures that, since you've been interviewing the people and you've been interviewing as many as you have, what are some of the examples of culture that have stuck out to you, that have been like, man, this one really resonates with me?
Man, you want to know what I've loved lately is we went to Charlotte, did a live recording there, but it's the biggest hotel technology show in the US. And I got to talk to so many folks that were newer to the industry. Maybe they've been in technology, but they weren't specifically hospitality. The energy they bring, the different ideas that they are bringing into this industry is going to change it for the better. So I think like it's so fun. I was asking a guy, I'm like, hey, what do you think? This is your first high tech. He goes, this is so exciting. All these companies are here to help the industry. And I'm like, I've been going to this show for 10 years and I've never thought about it like that. Like all I see is like I think like, oh man, all these people are competing for business, right? But he's like, this is so cool. There's thousands of companies that are trying to help the industry, and like having a different perspective and hearing outsiders' perspective that may have not grown up in the industry or haven't
Yeah.
been in it for a long time is so fun to see, because they're changing the culture of the industry. They're bringing ideas from, you know, different industries into hospitality and bringing those best practices to, whether, like you said, culture, or how you're engaging with hoteliers.
So what I've found is most industries, as I alluded to earlier, use the hospitality industry, or should, as the gold standard, right? And when I look at it, I mean, even like crossing paths, right? So people would ask us when we had salons, they would ask us, okay, so are you studying salons in your area? And I said, no, I never study salons. I study the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton, and different hotels that we'll stay at throughout the country and throughout the world. And they were like, well, how does that even apply? And I mean, I actually got them to give me at the Four Seasons in Maui, the recipe for the tea that they make at 11 to 1 o'clock.
No way.
The way I got it to happen was I read Isidore's book, Isidore Sharp. I mean, at some point, Isidore, you're out there. I want to have you on the podcast. You're a huge inspiration to me. But one of the things that he said is he gave an unlimited budget to his staff to make people happy. And
Awesome.
right? And he said, doesn't matter the position. I give you an unlimited budget to be able to make sure that the guests are taken care of. And so I called I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning when we were staying there in Maui. And I said, can I have the tea? And they were like, well, what tea are you talking about? I said, well, the one from 11 to 1. And they said, well, sir, it's not available. And I said, well, can I have the tea? And so they brought up some Lipton. And my wife was like, looked at me, and the look told me the whole story, which was just shut up and drink the tea that they gave you. Mm-hmm. And I called back down and I said, this is Mr. Cardenas. You didn't deliver the tea from 11 to 1. You gave me some Lipton. Can I get the tea? And they not only brought up that tea, but they brought the actual ingredients to it that listed out, which was, for me, like the highest level. So the reason why I'm saying this is because who does the hospitality industry study to gain their inspiration to bring new things into what we experience when we go to their companies?
What a good question. What a good question. I think it's all about people, right? I think you have to study. I almost think you got to study, restaurants. You got to study even airline industries, how they deal with people. But, anybody that's dealing with people on a regular basis and how they're interacting them and making those experiences unique. You brought up that example with Four Seasons. We had on Dina Bellin from Stay Pineapple. and they have that same rule. It's like if you want to make somebody's day, you have the option to go do that. And she shared a story where they had a guest that was at a job interview, went into their room, decorated it, had a huge banner, said, "Congratulations, I'm sure you knocked the interview out of the park." So having that opportunity to surprise and delight your guests, really going over the top and saying, "Hey, we really appreciate you. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for spending the money with us. Thank you for sharing, a night, 2 nights a week with us." But I think it's just showing how do you make people feel special? How do you do that? And I think, looking at industries that deal with people, that's who we need to study.
Give me another one, Steve. You talked about one that when you and your, it was the Stafford that you talked about. Am I correct?
Yeah, Stafford in
Yeah.
London.
So when you went to the Stafford in London, you got the mug, you got the chocolate, or the
Yeah.
chocolate, and the whole nine. So tell me about another experience that was personal, like, and I'll give you an example. I was in Chicago at the Roby, and if you haven't stayed at the Roby, that hotel was unbelievable. Like, is right in the Six Corners, right in Wicker Park in Bucktown. And the reason why I say it's unbelievable, number one, was because of the way that they treated me on the phone. When I would call, they were amazing. But here was the clincher. I called them, or I showed up to the hotel, and I opened I had forgot my backpack, and I carry a Bible with me.
Sure.
And I forgot my backpack, though. So I opened up the drawer, and every hotel, or it used to be, there was always a Bible in the thing.
Sure.
So I called down. I'm like, is there any way to be able to have a Bible, whatever it was? And they said, well, our hotel doesn't have them, and we just don't do it. And they're completely cool. I come back from an outing, and there's a Bible sitting there. And somehow, I don't know how they found out, but somehow they knew that I liked apples, but I didn't like the type of apples, the gala apples that generally people put out, the red, they're nasty.
Sure.
I like a certain type of apple. And they had that apple in my room. They had the Bible. And then the next time when I showed up, I didn't even say anything. They had the Bible in my room. They had apples sitting there waiting for me.
Wow.
Right?
That's awesome.
What about for you, like a personal side? They hit you with the company, which is amazing. When they did the chocolate on the thing. Has there been some things that have freaked you out, in a good way?
I don't think I've ever been freaked out. Anytime anybody does ultra personalization or anything like that, I am blown away. I always definitely appreciate it. I think one of my favorite trips was, I got married during COVID. So we did a honeymoon, to Utah, and then we went to Telluride in Colorado, and we stayed at the Peaks in Telluride, which is a great resort. You're ever in Telluride, go to the Peaks. It's an incredible hotel. They have a great balcony overlooking a golf course, and they have one of the coolest airports I've ever seen. But they checked in and they're like, "Hey, really friendly front desk guy. Like, why are you staying here?" And we're like, "We're on our honeymoon." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, this is awesome." Upgraded our room. He's like, "Great, got you a different room. Here you go." 10 minutes later, had a knock on my door. Boom, bottle of champagne. Right? Went downstairs, got something to eat. They're like, "Hey, we heard it's your anniversary. You want some more champagne?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, we had a bottle upstairs, but we'll take more," right? But every time we walked around, it was like, "Oh my gosh, happy anniversary. You got to come to dinner with us. You got to come to the balcony." It was just constant. Everybody knew it was our anniversary, and I couldn't believe it. And they were so accommodating. We talked to them about hyper local experiences, and they gave us the best things to do. "Oh, you got to go on the gondola, you got to do XYZ," and like really helped us not only plan it, but have the best time. So that was one of my favorites. The other one we stayed at in Portugal in Douro Valley. Have you ever been to Douro Valley, Kelly?
No.
So it's like Napa of Portugal, and we stayed in a 3-room hotel, and we were trying at breakfast. We were going to another city called Coimbra, and we were figuring out how to get there because we would literally have to take a train, not a plane, but a Uber, and like all different types of transportation. The owner, or not the owner, it was basically the guy kind of running the hotel. He came by, and it just incredible. He wrote out our full itinerary, where we need to go, what we need to do, when we need to transfer. Then he gave us all the links for how to get all these tickets. And like, he gave me his phone number. And he's like, when you go to Coimbra, you got to go to this restaurant. You got to go here. And he's like, you ever get stuck anywhere through this trip, here's my phone number. You give me a call. I will make sure that we get you taken care of. He goes, I have friends in all of your transfer points, so I will be able to call somebody and have you taken care of. And when you're in a foreign country, that is so huge, because especially when you're traveling with your wife or, people you care about, you don't want to put them in tough situations as you're traveling or get lost or anything like that. So, man, the peace of mind that I had from that, I still have the piece of paper written out where he wrote all of our directions. It was just one of the most awesome experiences I ever had, because he genuinely cared about us and he didn't want us to get lost, and he wanted us to enjoy Portugal and see as much of it as we could. So those are the two kind of experiences that I've had that really stick out to me. And the one in Portugal, he didn't give us anything. He didn't give us an upgrade. He didn't give us anything like that. It just was him caring as a human being about other human beings that were staying in his hotel. So it's stuff like that I'll never forget.
So Steve, through your experiences too of having, I mean, you guys are almost up to 100 episodes, and you have some of the greatest people in the hospitality industry, on the cutting edge, technology wise, service wise, everything like that. What would be a couple of things that, if you had all the people that were in the industry sitting in front of you, and you got to let them know, to be able to tell your story and for it to hit, if you did this, and that, it would hit at a higher level based off your experience? What would those things be?
I would are you talking about for like technology companies that are trying to get in front of the hospitality?
I think just anybody in the hospitality industry that wanted their story to be told, because I think a lot of times, like I've had people that say, I've got this message and I want to shout it out to the world. And they lead with, like one of my buddies, he sent me, he's like, look, I have the best program in the world. And he told me the program, and I said, stop for a second. And then I Googled his niche, and then and I put it in ChatGPT, and it actually gave me his exact method. And I was like, bro, it's on the internet and it's free. And I said, so what's the difference? And he was like, but you don't understand. I do it at a different. I said, no, people want to know who you are, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what would be some of those things when people are going to come on the show, or they're potentially going to tell their story, or they want their company to be known, or they want to expand it or grow? What advice would you have for them as far as storytelling or helping them to get that message out there in a way that is going to be the most effective?
Great question. I think you focus on the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What problems are you focusing, and why are you focusing on those problems? So often, we haven't had too many, but we've had people on who come on and they're pitching their product, everything. You ask them, how's the weather in California today? Great, but let me tell you about my product that can do X, Y, Z. I don't think that is the best way to go about it at all. I think, we've all run into those maybe pushy salesmen who, you talk to, and everything you say comes back to their company or their product. But I think it's the why. Why are you interested in helping the people? How are you specifically helping them? What are you looking to change in the industry? You're obviously not coming into this industry to be like another company or like somebody else. So why are you doing this? And I think that's the huge thing. Like, tell your story, your background, and I think that's why I like the format of our podcast, because we understand how they got to where they are. Nobody we've talked to is the CEO of their company as their first job. So understanding their background and telling your story, telling your story of why you're here and things like that. So I think the background, the why, and then, talking about other people that you've helped, and not so much feature dumping or pitching your product for everything.
resilience is something that I've noticed in you, especially when I had to reschedule the podcast. You were like, "Don't worry about it. I got this." How much of that resilience came from you growing up in Wisconsin? Because I was close to it, right? You got to have a lot of it. You got to have a lot of
Yeah.
resilience. You got to like the Packers.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, are the Brewers that big as the Packers in Wisconsin? And are the
Not even
Bucks
close.
also
Not even close.
not even close?
No, it's
Okay.
Packers. It's like the Bucks won a championship a few years ago, and like that was a big time. But man, you go to Sunday in Wisconsin and you're not seeing any Milwaukee Bucks jerseys in church. You're probably gonna see a few Reggie White, Brett Favre jerseys, maybe, probably still some Aaron Rodgers jersey. But it's funny, man, when I would go to church growing up, I would probably see about 5 to 10 Packer jerseys every Sunday. So it's in our blood there, man. But being resilient, growing up in Wisconsin, I think that's one of the cool things about growing up there is it's a very friendly place, right? And I think people are just when I first moved, quick story kind of about the difference. When I walk into if I want to have a beer or something and walk into a bar, I'm going to talk to the bartender. I'm probably going to talk to you if you're sitting next to me, just because I enjoy conversation. I enjoy talking to people.
Yeah.
So when I first moved to DC, first day there, went into a bar, just sat down, had a beer. Lady sitting next to me, I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Says, "How's your day going?" She looks at me, she goes, "Do I know you?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm Steve. Nice to meet you. I just moved into town." She's like, "Okay, why are you talking to me?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, we are not in Wisconsin anymore." And I text my buddies and I'm like, "I hate this place. I want to come home." But I think that's what it was. It was, going from Washington to DC, which are two totally different places. It teaches you that people are different. People have just the way you grow up, how you're more, morally, your character is just different. So like, I think it just always taught me to keep trying growing up in Wisconsin, do my best. But you always got to keep a positive attitude. That's probably the biggest thing I ever learned in Wisconsin was, just stay positive and keep working hard. I'm a big fan of Kobe Bryant, and, I don't know if it's exact quote, but he says, when in doubt, work hard. So, those two things in Wisconsin, working hard and having a positive attitude, that's probably the two things that shaped me the most there.
How do you keep a positive attitude when it doesn't go your way?
Oh my goodness. Man, just knowing that that's not the outcome. I've had a few, I've had a few things happen in my life where you're like, this sucks. Like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know where we're going to go from here, but like, we're both religious. And I think that is one thing that really helps me is it's like, all right, this is not in my hands. Like I can do whatever I want, but at the end of the day, it's in God's hands and he's going to take it and we're going to go whatever way he wants to go. So I think that's kind of the thing that, at least for me, gives me a little bit of the weight's taken off when things don't go my way.
What is one of those things where you were like, I mean, because obviously when you have a positive attitude, you're kind of, you're locked in, whether it be faith-wise, you're grounded in it, anything like that. But there are those times where we get to where you're like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
When was the last time or a time that you were like, man, this is, I think when I get on the phone with anyone who does customer service for like AT&T that's in India, I lose every sense of hope.
I don't think you're alone in that, man. I don't think you're alone in that one. I think when I hop on most customer service calls these days, I'm just like, oh gosh, this is going to take a minute. So, let me tell you, I don't think I've never shared this story. I'll give you one.
It's an exclusive. We should have a banner
one.
come across right now and just be like Steve Carran exclusive.
Yeah, man. So I had a life-changing event happen to me almost 3 years ago today. Or not today, it was earlier in the month. I was getting ready to go to my best friend's bachelor party. This guy, we went to high school, college together. We lived in dorms in high school. It wasn't like wasn't a bad school. It was a good school, but we lived in dorms. So I lived with him from freshman year to senior year in high school. We went to the same college. We lived freshman year to senior year. So we lived together for like 8 years. Best friend. I was his best man. Going down to Florida and got down there. And my other buddy's like, dude, you look really skinny. I'm like, I know, man. I'm on a new diet, crushing it. And I'm like, it's going great. So first night, we go to a casino. It's all great. Next morning, I wake up and I feel like I got hit by a train. And I'm like, I feel terrible. Went down to the pool, had a few Mai Tais, felt better, and then just kept feeling worse and worse throughout this trip. We went out for a steak. We went out on a boat. I had one drink and was just throwing up all day. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not feeling great at all. Stopped drinking that day and ended up laying down and sleeping on the boat. And then that night went out for a steak, couldn't eat at all. Went back to the Airbnb and FaceTime my wife. I've been throwing up all day and she's like, your eyes just look black. Like you have to go to the hospital. So I feel like I'm about to pass out. And I call the Uber. Uber picks me up. It's a party Uber. Lights inside, music blaring. I'm pale. I'm sweating. I feel like I'm about to pass out. And I get in the car. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, bro, I'm sorry. Can you please turn off the lights, turn off the music, and drive as fast as you can to the hospital? It's like, all right, man, cool. So we get to the hospital. They like rush me in. They say, oh, we need you to take a pee test for COVID. And I'm like, at that moment, I didn't think of it. But then I'm like, what COVID test do you do a pee test in? So they were obviously testing for something other than COVID. I thought that was funny. But then I was going through, they checked my blood work and everything. And then at like 3 a.m, they came in and they're like, you are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So
Whoa.
I ended up having to stay in the hospital on Saturday, that Saturday night, while my best friend, he was a strength and conditioning coach for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah.
He was out having bottle service with all Toronto Blue Jays players while I am in the hospital. So I am not still to this day. I don't like to talk about that day, but I ended up having to stay in the hospital from Saturday to Wednesday, and then had to fly out. My wife, she's incredible. We're in the process of moving from Denver to Fort Collins. I was supposed to finish up cleaning and help her move, but with this, I got delayed. End up flying in, meeting her, and then going to our new place. But that was a total life change. Having to now, it's just everything affects your blood sugar. I would go on walks in the morning, and my blood sugar would just drop, and I'm like, I can't do anything. I have to always worry about where my blood sugar is at. I can't when I would go on bike rides, my blood sugar would just drop and I couldn't ride my bike how I used to. So exercise was a whole different thing. What I ate was a whole different thing. Yeah. Then you gotta, we were talking about customer service. The amount of time I've spent on the phone with customer service people in the healthcare industry, that is not an industry you want to follow for how they deal with their people. So I think that probably that was the biggest challenge of my life. And it's been about 3 years, and I'm finally getting comfortable with just living life on a regular basis these days. But probably that 6 months after it, those were tough days. You just don't sleep well. Yeah, it affects everything you do. So yeah, that was 3 years ago. That one was a tough, really tough time. But that's the thing. It's not going to be hard forever. And now what I can handle, what I can manage myself, I'm a much stronger person than I was 3 years ago. So, that's kind of those things. It's not focusing on what's wrong. It's going to get better. Having that positive attitude really, really helped me through it. But yeah, it's been a change.
Are you working with Dexcom? Is that the
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I got it right here.
There we go, man. Whenever I see him now, because my buddy Eric, he's an elite athlete. He ran 7 marathons on 7 different continents in 7 consecutive days, and he's a type 1 diabetic, which know that you could die. You could die anyway from doing that, but as a type 1 diabetic, let me ask you this: what technology would take it through the roof for you if a hospitality company adopted it and had it available to make sure that type 1 diabetics, when they checked in, that they had available to them.
Man, do you want to know what I would love? I just would love some sweets, to be honest with you, because what happens is you get low, right? And you would rather go high than low. You don't want to drop low, and when you get low, you can pass out and die. So what I always, and I had to do this at State Pineapple in San Francisco, I was low. I was in the 50s, and I had to run. You want to be between 80 and 180.
Yeah.
And I was in 50s, real low, went down there. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just need a Coke and I need some Skittles. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, I am. I'm just type 1 diabetic and I just need sugar. And they're like, take what you need. We got it taken care of, like totally fine. And that's like, just having that understanding, I guess, is huge. But like, if I'm a type 1 diabetic and I come in and there's like, a granola bar, some long-term carbs, and then some sweets if I get low that will pick me back up right away. Like, I would just be like, I love you guys. And I will always stay at your hotel. Cause I mean, that's the big thing. So,
yeah. Well, the reason why I ask is because I have quite a few friends. Jamie Robinson, her daughter Taylor Robinson is a type 1 diabetic, has rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, she's gone through the ringer, but I didn't know about these things. Like, I didn't know until I would ride very slow with my buddy Eric. He's an elite athlete, so he would have to ride really slow to stay with me. Most of the time, you want to push your friends. I'm that friend that cycling, you want to cycle with me because you'll feel good about yourself when you're done. Because Eric would be like riding backwards on his bicycle, you know what I'm saying? So but it's a very interesting, and it's something that most people don't understand because, like, what do you wish, and I love the fact that you opened up that way. What do you wish that people knew about type 1 as opposed to type 2? Because sometimes in that world, there's judgment. And for the normal person, they hear diabetes, they're like, oh, cool, I'm blanketing everybody. Why don't you just eat better, Steve? And that's going to make it better. And for a type 1, help me with this. I could already see your reaction with it. I already see it.
Oh my goodness. It's so funny. The theories I have heard of why because usually you get type 1 when you're young. Very rare to get it after you're 30 years old. So I have heard so many theories about why I've got type 1. But man, when people are like, oh, I've heard that it's reversible, and that my attitude, if I believe that I'm not type 1, I will not be type 1. I've heard that one, but I think it's just, I think a lot. Yeah.
Hold on. Here's a disclaimer though. If you're watching right now and you heard me laugh, I'm not laughing at type 1 diabetes. I'm laughing at Steve's response and his face. If you're just listening though, and you heard me laugh, picture my face right now. I'm a very handsome guy. I'm just joking.
Very.
But
very handsome.
Because I'm reacting to your expression as you go. But keep going. Keep going.
No. I got you. But yeah, I've heard, eating healthy. And it's funny. I'm curious too. I've asked a lot of questions. I'm sure my endocrinologist thinks I'm a pretty ridiculous person for all the stupid questions I've asked, but I think just educating yourself, and maybe listen a little bit more and understand before offering your opinion. I think everybody is so eager, and I think it comes from a good place. I don't think there's any ill intention, any malice behind it. I think they truly want to help me, but some of the things that I hear about how my type 1 diabetes can be cured is, kind of comical to me. But I think it's just, listening, and then maybe doing a little research as well. But hold off on those wild wild ideas. But hey, if you got a wild idea on how I can be cured from type 1 diabetes, put it in the comment, because I want to see it. I might even give it a try.
I think if you play at the level that you do, you have to have a certain amount of dedication. to the craft. You have to have, well, we talked about the resilience part, things like that. To you in your life, what is more important than that? Right. So I'll give you an example. There was a time where I would only take a phone call from actually two people, my mom or the president of the United States. And I knew my mom wouldn't call me at work anyway. And I was pretty certain that the president of the United States wasn't going to need my advice on that day.
Hey, you never know.
Right.
He might need some beauty advice.
He could do that, man. But I tell you, like, it, but there was that, if my mom did call, I was taking the call.
Yeah.
For you, with the type of focus that you have, things like that, what is more important?
It's funny, and this conversation has really flowed well. I think since the type 1 diabetes things, that doctor said when he walked in that day, he said you wouldn't have made it through the night, like you would have passed away. And I think that moment things clicked. I've always been very career driven. I've always been very much about that. But in that moment, laying in the hospital bed, you kind of realize that's not what it's all about. It's not about all the money. It's not, the career is great. And I'm so lucky to do what I do, but, having, the people around you and having those relationships, having that community around you that, you just have. And I think that's one thing that I've realized is, we can be as successful as we want, but if it's just us at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to make us happy. But, when we're able to share our successes and have these great relationships and communities around us, I think that's more where our happiness comes from. The people around you, like you here, this has been the most fun podcast I've ever done, including my own. So like having this community of you where, we get to just share ideas and talk about what's going on in life. So for me, it's that community and the people in your life more than possessions and kind of money.
I appreciate it, man. It's great to be able to hear because, the reason why I started the podcast is because of my kids. And my kids, Maddox and McKenna. So McKenna's 15 years old. I failed as a dad this morning. I want to admit this, and I have to leave. Once I get done with the podcast, I have to go back home and deal with the failure that I was as a father before I got on the podcast.
All right.
And I'll tell you what it is. We were on the way to school. She tried out for a play yesterday. She didn't get a call back, and she was one of the only people that didn't get a call back. She was very sad about it, and she said she didn't want to go to school. Well, in my get off my lawn dad thing, I was like, I'm taking you to school. We got to school, and she's like, Dad, please don't make me go. I said, get out of the car. And I forced her to get out of the car. And the day of school wasn't that important.
Yeah.
And I was like,
the beautiful thing is you can make it better though. Yeah. That's the beautiful thing. And I'm sure your daughter will forgive you, and we're all humans, right? Like we're never going to be perfect. And just having, I think, that grace with other humans and understanding, like, kudos to you for realizing your mistake and your ignorance, ego didn't get in the way. Like, she has to go to school. That's just how it is. It's Thursday. We go to school on Thursdays. You didn't let that cloud your judgment. You understand your mistake. And I think that's more important than anything. So kudos to you, Kelly. Kudos.
I don't know if my daughter's going to be giving me kudos, but I appreciate you, man.
But I think you even addressing that issue and saying, hey, I messed up, and holding yourself accountable, that is a life lesson for her that I bet you she will never forget. She, how angry she was, she had to go to school, that will fade. But showing how you handled it and how you took accountability for your mistake, that's a life lesson she won't forget.
Well, I appreciate you speaking life to me. So it's that the 15-year-old, which is McKenna, that's the one that I'm going to apologize to and make sure that she knows. And then I've got Maddox, who's 12, and he's a little sports guy, and
nice.
He marches to the beat of his own drum. But I never wanted them to worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by iconic people like yourself. And so, what advice would you have, Steve, for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, it would be awesome.
Maddox and McKenna, follow your dreams. Do not let other people dictate what you do. Find your passion and go full force at that. Um, do what you do as a passion. You will love life much more than if you are searching for a paycheck or trying to do something that other people are telling you should do. Find your passion and go full force into it, and do your best, and always have a positive attitude, and always listen to your dad as well. He's a very smart guy, knows what he's doing. So when he says something, make sure you listen to him as well.
Steve, I haven't done this before. Give a shout out to my wife. My wife is named Brooklyn. You can say hello to her.
Hi, Brooklyn. How we doing? Your husband's incredible. You are a lucky woman.
Steve, where should Brooklyn and I go and stay at the next time that we go on vacation?
Well, let me ask you this. What type of experience do you want? Do you want a high-end luxury experience? Do you want a more rustic experience? Or what are you looking for?
Well, there's two things. My wife loves adventure, and she
Beautiful.
likes to go, 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 go.
Beautiful.
But her handsome husband likes to lay by the pool, be called Mr. Cardenas, and be misted with Avion water.
I love it. You know what you should do? I'm going to give a shout out here for you because I think I got one for you both.
Okay.
Maybe it's an anniversary trip, but there is a resort. It is top 3 on my bucket list. It's called Paws Up in Montana. It is one of the top luxury glamping properties in the United States. You get a butler 24/7. So you get your high-end luxury, but they have experiences out the wazoo. You can go horseback riding, you can go archery shooting, you can do anything you want. So, and that's the great thing. We talked to the managing partner there. He's like, we have and if you want it to be more romantic, they have an adults only section where they have like luxury tree houses. Like, we are talking to the nines. You got a great spa, hot tub, everything all in the room, and they're just very nice. So the managing director, Steve Hurst, he was saying that they have a lot of couples come, but they travel very differently. So to your point, they will plan activities a lot for the one that's a lot more outgoing, but that other person that wants to relax by the pool a little bit more, you'll be taken very well care of by the butler. So I'm going to give a shout out to Paws Up for you guys. If that's something up your speed, you got to check it out.
Man, that sounds good.
I know.
I don't know if I'm going to send my wife this right away. I'm going to tell her not to listen to the podcast because she's going to book it tomorrow. So, Steve, honestly, it has been an absolute pleasure. I would love, we talked about this before, but I would love to have you on more. I want to have you on more on the show. I think it would be so incredible to be able to keep us up with what is coming in hospitality, what we can look forward to, and the places that we can, when you were saying give it a shout out, like some people aren't aware. Like I wasn't aware of Paws Up. I am now, and now I want to know as much as I possibly can, man.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Kelly, and I love what you're doing, man. Almost at 500 episodes, wildly impressive. Keep up the great work. I love your attitude. I was talking to my wife last night. I'm like, I enjoy going on podcasts, but this one I have literally been looking forward to since we had it scheduled last time. And I have been, just so excited to come on and join you. And I will come on anytime you want. Your personality and positivity is infectious. So appreciate you having me on, sir.
Well, I'm excited about it. I'm going to get you more notice so you and your wife will do the date night and come to the Vibe Room, which I think will be amazing, man. If you can stay on for a second after the commercial, it would be awesome because I want to continue on with our friendship, man. But you have been amazing. Man. I love you. If you haven't listened already on LinkedIn and every other platform, I kept saying it wrong.
It's Hotelier. It's okay.
Hotelier.
We go by either.
But is it French?
I think maybe.
Okay.
I should know this.
I was trying to be worldly as much as possible.
You're probably pronouncing it right. We just Americanize the whole thing, and we call it Hotelier now. We just, get rid of it.
The Modern Hotelier podcast. If you're not listening to it, you're missing out. And if you're not on it, your company's not getting the voice that it could. So, Steve, thank you again, man. You're officially off the hot seat.
Thank you, Joe.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain we